no one that gets up here and talks that bleeds chiropractic and loves chiropractic and has served chiropractic as much as this man, my good friend, mentor, and brother, Dr. Rick Burns. Make sure you show him lots of love.
Well, I can't wait to see this guy. He sounds like a pretty cool dude. Yeah. June 17th, my 48th anniversary of practicing chiropractic. Okay? And my patients say, "You going to retire?" I'm having the time of my life. Why would I want to retire? All right? It is so much fun. Are we doing okay at volume in the back? Okay, great. All right. First off, before I get started, the doctors that were trained by Dr. Gonstead, raise your hand, please. Okay. I want you young people to look around. Not too many hands up. Okay? Okay. And Bill is a very good friend. Dr. Randall, obviously a good friend, but Bill's a really good friend. One of my ex-kids, he's wanting to retire. I can't believe that. Right? And he has a phenomenal practiced in Michigan for a number of years, has phenomenal practice just outside Chicago. I can't remember the suburb. Okay, Deerfield. Okay, I'm going to go off script a little bit. Could you tell what an opportunity that some young person might have?
Well, I have other fish to fry, but I find I got to get the fish before I can fry them. So, but it would also be egregious for me to just depart chiropractic without passing on what I know. So what I'd like to find is I'd like to find somebody to come into my office and mentor and then turn my business over to them when I do finally go off into the sunset. So, you know, if you're interested and you're absolutely, completely, totally dedicated to Gonstead, there are flyers around on the GCSS table over here. There's flyers. If you see me, come and talk to me. Give me a call. The number's on there. My email address is on there. So anybody that's interested in some place to go, north of Chicago, Illinois has got a great practice law. You can smoke marijuana in your office. You can shake and bake and colonicize and, you know, do vaginal exams, anything you want to do. But if you're a good chiropractor, you know, you can make an incredible living as a great chiropractor doing nothing but chiropractic. Thanks, Ron.
Well, if I'd known he's going to go in that direction. See, he's up. Any national students here? Okay. Well, see, I was trained upper cervical specific at the Palmer College of Chiropractic, everything, which we call the hole-in-one technique. I was up speaking at a national once, everything, and they thought the hole-in-one technique was clinic irrigation, so they were just really confused. So, see, in chiropractic, we talk about being clear. They look at being clear a totally different way with clinic irrigation on that. Okay. Okay. Let's get it started. Let's get it started. Okay. See, this is a homecoming for me. I had the pleasure of taking 8 seminars from Dr. Gonstead, my first 46 seminars. Yeah, I'm a slow learner. Okay. We're at this location because it used to be up here every 2 months. They didn't travel around the country like they do now and everything. You know, I'm a few over 100 seminars, so I'm a real slow learner on that. Okay. And so I'm going to share with you, I had the pleasure of teaching at Palmer College of Chiropractic and everything. And I love my diversified teacher. So thusly, I was the king of diversified. You know, there's a prone cervical move. It didn't matter if you're subluxated or not. I could rock your world and everything. Okay? Well, Dr. Gonstead gave free seminars to the technique faculty. I like cheese. So I'm going to spend a weekend up in Wisconsin. Everything. I thought that'd be a fun weekend. And those of you that didn't have the pleasure of hearing Dr. Gonstead, we were an inconvenience to him. Okay? He loved taking care of patients. He would see patients before the seminar. He'd see patients at break. He'd see patients at lunch. Okay? So when the seminar, they go, Doc, it's time to get started. It's time to get started. And he'd just grab a few films. And he always had the view box right over here. Okay? Grab a few films and start talking about what he was seeing that day. Okay? And my first seminar up here, he talked about this quadriplegic he's taking care of from Mexico. Well, at break, I go upstairs and I see this kid. So it wasn't a war story from 20 years ago or 10 years ago or last month. It was right then. And I really liked what Doc Gonstead had to say, so I started coming back. I came back in 2 months, and there's that same kid who's in a wheelchair walking with a cane. Now, I was taught great philosophy at Palmer College Chiropractic. Every single one of my teachers was a practicing chiropractor. So philosophy, you don't even have philosophy courses. Philosophy was a silver thread that went through every single course. But then I got to see it. Okay? Later on, I got to see Dr. Gonstead take care of a quadriplegic with a Jefferson fracture. And those of you who don't know what a Jefferson fracture is, when the atlas goes this way, and he sits there. And the guy didn't die, so I was impressed by that. And then because I got to know Dr. Gonstead here, Dr. Gonstead sent me my first quadriplegic. You know, I was awake all night thinking about that. Holy crap, you know, everything. And then he was a lineman for the University of Northern Iowa, guard. He went to the Bix, which is this weekend, which is a 7-mile road race. You know, he did a bunch of 12-ounce curls. And he drove into a swimming pool and dislocated C5. And he died 26 times that day, and they kept bringing him back. So he's a complete quad. And he was in what was called a sip and puff. Anybody don't know what a sip and puff is? Sip and puff is a wheelchair where you have the tube, goes forward, backwards, turns right, turns left. Okay? And I says, Pat, I says, the way I look at it, there's only one thing worse than where you're at. He says, Doc, I don't think it'd be worse. Green light. And Pat dislocated that C5 in July, but I didn't get to see him until February. And I wish to this day I could have seen him shortly after. Right? But with chiropractic care, Pat was able to get full use of the upper extremity. He could drive a joystick. We never got him out of the wheelchair. Right? And then I was just working cervicals. You know, since he was in an automatic cervical chair, right? Okay. And then one day, you know, he was talking about didn't have control, so he had a colostomy bag. Right? I thought, well, I just wonder. And I went to his house. It was just easier to go to his house to take care of him than he didn't shut down my whole office the first time he came over there. So that was for my benefit, you know. I thought, well, I want the rest of the spine to cut. So I had his brother help me scoot him forward in a chair because he couldn't move. And I found a break at L5. I thought, wow, I didn't think there'd be any communication down there, right? And so we had a bunk bed, and we were able to get, you know, Pat on his side on the bunk bed, put his side posture position, okay? Forgetting he has no muscle tone. I thought, oh, crap. I thought all the bones just shattered right there, okay? But Pat got bowel and bladder control back, okay? And then Pat became assistant football coach at Davenport West High School, you know, with that and everything. So, okay, I was taught, and I still believe this to this day, there's only one contraindication to adjustment. Rigor mortis. Not death. If they're warm, you got a shot. So, if you don't have the cojones, and that's a scientific term, if you don't have the cojones to take care of anybody, you send to me or Dr. Randall or Dr. Pollock, everything, you know, we'll adjust them, everything, okay? And I don't care what they have, you know. If they have a subluxation, we can correct it, and their body will function better. Enough said on that one. Matter of fact, I should just stop with that, enough said, okay? Okay? As I said, that's my mentor. Okay? He always started a seminar, and this is a generic term. He's from the Midwest, Norwegian. Use boys. Doesn't matter if female or male. Use boys. Use boys are just too many places, too often, too hard. He opened every seminar with that. Okay? And that's true. Okay? Another one of my mentors, Dr. Gonstead graduated 1923. My grandfather graduated in 1924. You know, they were good friends and everything. Matter of fact, my grandfather had a routine. He came up with the Palmer Lyceums, you know, in August. And then after Lyceum, he came up here and got adjusted by Dr. Gonstead. That was his annual routine with Lyceum. He got adjusted by others. So they both learned their philosophy from B.J. Palmer. Okay? And these are the only tools I use in the office. As my good friend and colleague, my philosophy teacher, Dr. Galen Price, says, you don't need to heat them up, cool them off, or rinse them out. Okay? Chiropractic is chiropractic. You know, I'm so busy taking care of a vertebral subluxation, I don't need to do anything else on that. And then we have people, I used to be on the board of directors of the International Chiropractors Association, you know, not the and let's put it this way, all opinions expressed are strictly mine, not necessarily that of GCSS or GMI. Okay? Not the Anti-Chiropractic Association. Okay? There's people who want drugs in our profession? What the WTF? What's this foolishness? There has not been one time in my entire career, boy, I wish I had the ability to prescribe a drug. Do we have a shortage of professions that want to give drugs? No. Have you ever found a drug that doesn't have bad effects? And I tell them, they're bad effects, not side effects. That's how they dumb them down. They're bad effects. Okay? I not once in 48 years I thought, boy, I wish I could give them something. Well, okay. So philosophy. Okay? Those two mentors and Dr. Fred Barge, I meant to put Dr. Fred Barge as a good friend of mine, have three components. They were great at philosophy, they were great at science, and they're great at the art. Okay? B.J. Palmer had equal balance on all three. Dr. Gonstead had equal balance on all three. So we're going to go through those three components. Philosophy, love of wisdom. Okay? And you young people, you should listen to these old docs because they're full of what? Wisdom. We're full of other stuff too, but you know, we're full of wisdom. Okay? Now, philosophy or chiropractic is an equilateral triangle. Balance with philosophy, science, and art. That makes up chiropractic. Okay? Now, Dr. Lyons says that, you know, we had the pleasure of being together for the philosophy diplomat. Exactly. My favorite 3 years. Okay? Like I said, I learned great philosophy at Palmer College of Chiropractic. And then I took the LCP class. It was a one-year class in philosophy. And I found out how much I didn't know. And then I took the 3-year program, the diplomat program. Then I found out I really didn't know a lot. Okay? But I have a lot of colleagues, so I can step on some toes. Okay? They're all philosophy. I call them pop and pray. You know? They're innate intelligence, above, down, inside, out, and everything. They rack every single bone in the body. All philosophy, but no art, no science. Okay? Dr. Gonstead's statement, medicine, the study of disease and what causes man to die. Chiropractic, the study of health and what causes man to live. Didn't that say it all? Isn't that true? Isn't that true? When I have a new patient, okay, the only time I talk symptoms in the office is on initial consultation. I do a review of systems, and I'm going to dig deep. I'm going to find out if you've ever had a hangnail. And I finish up, and I turn the pad of paper, because I write them down. I said, everything we've written down are called effects. The difference between medical doctors and chiropractors, medical doctors treat effects. we try to find out what's causing those. Does that make sense? What's everybody say? It's like a doggone V8 moment. They always say, yeah, it does make sense. You know why? It's the truth. Medical doctors do treat effects. They don't correct cause. Right? If they're taking a drug, I said, I'm sure you're not suffering from a lack of Prilosec. You know? And they understand it. And so that's the bottom line. Okay? They're studying disease. Okay? And my good friend Fred Bard said it best. Medical doctors instill fear. Look at all the media over this last year. It's all fear. If you look at commercials, my generation, the baby boomers, okay, they show grandma with the wolf's head. You don't want to give your kid whooping cough or your grandson whooping cough. It's all fear-based. Okay? Do you want to get pneumococcal pneumonia? You can die. And everything. So medical doctors instill fear. Chiropractors give hope. And never remove hope from a patient. The major premise, okay? If you learn the 33 principles of chiropractic, if you don't understand what that is, you need to buy Stevenson's textbook, chiropractic textbook. Okay? There's 33 principles of chiropractic. Number one, a universal intelligence is in all matter and continually gives to it all its properties and actions, thus maintaining existence. The universe is organized. Okay? The earth revolves around the sun. The earth spins on its axis. It doesn't spin 26 hours one day, then 23, so the average is 24. It's 24 hours. The tides go in, tides go out. Okay? If I put an acorn in the ground, there's intelligence in that acorn, I always get an oak tree. I don't get a maple tree. Okay? I'm a pepperhead. I love heat. Okay? If I grow an jalapeno plant, I get jalapenos. If I grow a habaneros, I get habaneros. Unless somebody marks the packages wrong. We get to work with that universal intelligence. Universal intelligence is in what? All matter. And continually gives to it its forms and functions, properties and actions, thus maintaining existence. The expression of this intelligence through matter is the chiropractic meaning of life. Life is necessarily the union of intelligence and matter. Life is a triunity having three necessary united factors, namely intelligence, life force, and matter. Brings us to number 5. In order to have 100% life, there must be 100% universal intelligence, 100% life force, 100% matter. Now, universal intelligence is always 100%. But can we have less than 100% expression of life force? Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't have a job. And can we have less than 100% matter? Yeah, I mean, if a patient's had their gallbladder removed, I don't care how good your torque is, how deep your thrust is, you're not going to help that gallbladder. I don't have any RCTs to back me up on that. That's just a Burns theory. Okay? Oh, we're going to talk about evidence-based. Don't worry on that. Okay. Most of us by educators has never been in the world. Okay. Okay. So you can have 100% mat or less than 100% matter, and you can use that as a teaching opportunity, and I use that as a teaching opportunity all the time. If a patient's ever had an ectomy, they had their gallbladder taken out. Why did they take out your gallbladder? It wasn't working correctly. Is it working better now? Again, don't have any RCTs to back myself up on this, but I have a theory that a gallbladder working at 40% is still better than once in an incinerator. Just a theory on that, no RCTs. Okay? Now, I want to get this opinion. Okay? How many, I just got, like I said, after teaching for 40 years, I just love students. Okay? You're a lot more fun to hang around old people. How many Sherman people we have here? I know there's quite a few. Good. And I got to see all those Palmer, Florida people. Give me your hands again. Good job, Doc. I'm proud of you. Say hi to Derek Jacobs for me, will you? On there. I hired Derek Jacobs, and then he abandons me and goes to Palmer, Florida. You jerk. Okay. Okay. And Life West, I know Brad Francis is here with the Life West people. Okay. Brad Francis is one of my ex-interns. I'm real proud of Brad and everything. And I've had the pleasure of being offered jobs at Life University, Life West, Parker, Cleveland, Kansas City. But I love practicing chiropractic, and I don't want to give up my practice. Plus, no matter where you're at, there's politics. And I was fired from Palmer. To give you a perspective on that. Okay. Hey, but I'll tell you about one of my mottos. Matter of fact, we have epigrams on the walls over at Palmer. Okay? And BJ had them all over the place, and they got painted over. But then we got permission to put some back up, and Joe Peterson, who was in my technique department, he's the one that painted them. The one I had going up the stairs to my office, for those of you who go to Palmer, I got to recognize my Palmer chiropractic people. All right, everything. Okay. Is going up the stairs to my office, West Hall. Another good thing about telling the truth, you don't have to remember what you say. Well, I told the truth, but I got fired. But all these different colleges, I want you to look at some principles. See what you think about these. Okay? What do you think? The mind, body, and spirit are unified. What do you think, chiropractors? That sounds pretty awesome. Okay? Okay? The body has self-healing and self-regulating homeostatic mechanisms. What do you think? Yeah, that's a pretty sound principle. The body needs beer periodically. Structure and function are reciprocally interrelated. What do you think? Yeah, I like those. Rational treatment is based on a thorough understanding and implementation of the previous three principles. If any other diagnostic and treatment process is followed, then it would, by definition, be irrational, and irrational diagnosis and treatment have no place in medicine and healthcare. Can anybody tell me who wrote that? Any ideas? Mayo? That's a really good guess. Right? I got pictures of the Mayo brothers. Okay? One has head tilt this way and the other has curvature. I should have adjusted those guys. Any other ideas besides Mayo? That's a really good. Who said Mayo? That was good. It's wrong, but. No ideas? Rockefeller? Well, I've been teaching for 48 years. I've never heard that one before. Andrews Taylor Still, MD, founder of osteopathy. My little farm town, does anybody know where Tuscola, Illinois is? Whoa, that's a shock. If you're in Champaign, Illinois, where the University of Illinois is, home of the Fighting Illini, which we don't fight very often, but that's still our name. If you drive 25 miles south and don't blink, you're going to pass Tuscola, Illinois. That's where I was raised. 3 doctors. Doc Deaver, medical doctor. Doc Cunningham, osteopath. Doc Burns, my grandpa, 1924 Palmer grad. If you were sick, you went to see Doc Deaver for drugs, or you went to Doc Cunningham or Doc Burns in the public's mind to get manipulated to get well. Because it's all about getting sick people well. It wasn't about, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your whatever. That's the most stupid thing in the world. Right. But plus, these guys there, and you young students need to Google the movie 10. Okay? 10 is a really good thing. That was Bo Derek, and she was a 10. To say 10's bad on a pain scale, that's really stupid. Okay? So anyhow, if you go back in time, chiropractic and osteopathy were very similar by philosophy and methodology. Medicine is way over here. 1956, at the American Osteopathic Convention held in California, the osteopaths decided to abandon their principles. Pay attention. I want everybody's attention. If you lose your principles, you lose your identity. Can you tell the difference between an osteopath and a medical doctor anymore? No. Matter of fact, in Davenport, Iowa, we had Davenport Osteopathic Hospital. That's where a lot of my classmates, their babies were born and stuff like that. Why did we have an osteopathic hospital? Because those low-life, undereducated osteopaths, they were not allowed to go into a real hospital. They had to have their own. But because they sold out their principles, they got absorbed. Watch out, chiropractors. Watch out. Then there's ones that are all science. Well, if it isn't evidence-based chiropractic, it isn't chiropractic. Okay? If you understand the philosophy of chiropractic and you understand the science of chiropractic, they're synonymous. They're not separate. And those people that say, I'm an evidence-based chiropractor, or I'm a philosophy-based chiropractor, you're ignorant of the other. Because they support one another, they're not separate. Okay? I accepted chiropractic in full faith. Then 1982, my students started reading research. Oh, crap. So I started reading research. And I apologize to everybody on my research email list. My wife passed away December 31st, so I haven't been doing as much as I wanted. But watch out, if I get a chance to sit down at the laptop or the desktop, your inbox will be full. Okay? So anyhow, I started reading research, and the Dr. Jeff Lauer, Josh Lauer, they're on my email list. And I'm reading this stuff all the time. And research supports chiropractic. And that's really cool. Right? And I've been around long enough to watch research catch up with chiropractic. Things that I learned on a theoretical basis are now science, which is kind of neat. But these evidence-based people say, well, if you don't have a randomized controlled clinical trial, well, you've never been in practice. So, evidence-based. What is evidence-based? Okay. Uh-oh, let's look at evidence. This is a British Medical Journal? Nah, not out of the British. Okay, I read a lot of European medical journals because they're not so pharmaceutical driven. There's some really great stuff. You ought to see what they've been saying about this COVID stuff. It's a totally different scenario than what we're getting on our media. Okay. Well, here's education for everybody. Who's the number one advertiser in television? Pharmaceutical industry. Who's the number one lobbyist in Washington, D.C.? Enough said. Okay. Young people, if you want to know the answer on anything, follow the money. It always takes you right there. Okay? What? Only 15% of medical intervention is supported by scientific evidence? Were there any RCTs on transplants? No, they just started doing them. And the first one was a pig heart put into a human. I would love to hear that conversation. Bill, I know your heart's pretty bad, but I got this pig. She's a healthy pig. She's a pretty pig. And she has a good heart. So I'm going to put her heart in you. Is that okay?
Yes.
But that was the first transplant. That's how it all got. No RCTs. Okay? Most medical interventions, they just start them. Only 6% of drug advertising is supported by evidence. Let that sink in. Okay? Oh, but the FDA, they'll protect us. Do you realize how many drugs have been taken off the market for killing people that were already approved by the FDA? It's ridiculous. This is one of my favorite research articles out of British Medical Journal. Parachute used to prevent death and major trauma related to gravitational challenge, a systemic review of the randomized controlled clinical trials. See, medical doctors hate this evidence crap much as I do. So this is what they wrote. As with many interventions intended to prevent ill health, the effectiveness of parachutes has not been subjected to rigorous evaluation by using randomized controlled clinical trials. Advocates of evidence-based medicine have criticized the adoption of interventions evaluated by using observational data. We think everyone might benefit if the most radical protagonists of evidence-based medicine organized and participated in a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled crossover trial of the parachute. Now, seriously, the British Medical Journal every Christmas does kind of a tongue-in-cheek review. And what's interesting, and I should put that in my slides, 3 years later, they actually did a research paper on this. And they found with their research that there's no difference of jumping out of the plane with or without a parachute. But you can't read just the abstract. You have to read the whole paper, which Materials and Methods is really boring. Well, so that caught my interest. I thought, what? The plane was on the ground. So they either jumped out with a parachute or jumped out with a parachute. And it was the same results. So you have to read the whole article. Okay, ironically, few published studies have evaluated the teaching effectiveness of evidence-based medicine, and 2 recent critical reviews of evidence-based curricula offer disappointing conclusions to the effectiveness. Albert Szent-Györgyi, Nobel laureate in physiology, 1937. I just love this saying. Discovery consists of seeing what everybody else is seeing and thinking what nobody else has thought. If that isn't Dr. Gonstead, nothing is. And we'll describe that. Okay? Evidence-based is a practitioner's application of the current best evidence moderated by patients' needs, and this is the one I don't like, and wants, integrated with clinical expertise and judgment to formulate the best management strategy of the patient. See, patients don't know what they need because the average patient thinks that chiropractic takes care of what? Pain. Yeah, if you meet somebody, and young people, you'll see this. If you meet somebody, they do the private part or full of dollar sign. They either reach for their back or reach for their neck, make a dollar sign like that. Okay. You know, and the advantage of being older, you get more direct. So I'm a chiropractor. Oh, I got this problem right here. I go, actually, I'm a gynecologist. Hey, you guys. I'm a proctologist. You are? Hey. What do you think of that? I don't think any other profession has that problem. You know? See, I shake hands with my patients, right? Except for if they're a proctologist. Hi. Nice to meet you, Bill. I don't want to shake that hand. Met a guy or a proctologist one. His name was Ben Dover. No, that's not true, but see, I've heard part of this before, so I got to entertain myself periodically. Okay. But patients don't know what they want. So the average patient comes in with a problem, but by the time we educate them, they want what I have to offer about correcting the underlying cause, as opposed to treating effect. Okay? Because opioids take care of low back pain. Okay? This is what the definition is. Clinical experience. Wow, did Dr. Gonstead have clinical experience? And then because he practiced for a long period of time, he had case studies and multiple case studies. And he observed lots of different things. That is research. He didn't do any RCTs because he was not going to, okay, well, you have a subluxation, but I'm not going to adjust you because of research. Yeah, no. If you had a subluxation, you're going to get adjusted by Dr. Gonstead. Okay? Now, this is how cool chiropractic is. I started Palmer College in July of 1969. My Gray's Anatomy in 1969 said the sacroiliac joints didn't move. Fred Eli, I-L-L-I, if you want to Google it, you Google people, okay, discovered that the SI joints moved in 1968. Houston Search Firm, but textbooks are always behind. Chiropractors have been adjusting the sacroiliac joint since 1910 in specific directions. The listings they had PI, INEX as early as 1910. So not only were they adjusting things that science said didn't move, they were adjusting in specific directions. I'd like to go back and say, how'd you figure that out? I think they look at the osteological collection. You don't know, Palmer had a very large osteological collection, a lot of bones, okay? I think that moved. Dr. Gonstead came up with the AS listing, okay? And I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Dr. Gonstead with that. He had a young man, Dr. Gonstead, used to see patients all day long, and then Mrs. Gonstead would drive him around the evenings, you know, while he'd try to nap between farms and adjust people. And a little boy had jumped off in front of a wagon, landed on the tongue, and hit his ischium, the tongue, and jammed up, and he couldn't walk. Okay? And Dr. Gonstead figured out, well, I think that rocked forward, and that's how the AS listing came about with all that. So Dr. Gonstead came up with that, but did Dr. Gonstead say, I haven't read a research article about that, you know? Then Dr. Gonstead talked about disc swelling. Dr. Gonstead, discs don't swell. 1983, the research found out that discs swell. Disc being a pain-sensitive structure. Dr. Gonstead, the disc doesn't have a nerve supply. 1982, we found it's a recurrent meningeal nerve. And then there's studies that show a degenerated disc, there's actually nerve fibers that go into the degenerated disc, and they're more innervated. But RCTs hadn't said that yet. So Dr. Gonstead was wrong until the 80s. And then research caught up with Dr. Gonstead. Then, disc degeneration being a result of abnormal biomechanics of subluxation. For the young people, you know what this nerd Dr. Gonstead used to do on weekends? He would go down to Indianapolis, Indiana, at Lincoln College of Chiropractic, and do dissections on disc. How many chiropractors do you know right now that are routinely going, I just wonder how to make myself a better chiropractor. I'm going to go dissect some disc. And that's where he came up with degeneration being a result of abnormal biomechanics. And what's called the whiplash chart, anybody ever seen the whiplash chart, made 1954 that showed the stages of disc degeneration. Dr. Gonstead, disc degeneration is a natural process of aging. You know, it can be because of biomechanics. Okay. 1982, Swedish researchers, and that's when MRI started getting popular, Swedish researchers looked at MRIs on a T2 weighted image where water is white, L1 white, L2 white, L3 white, L4 white, L5 black and thin. And they had this theory. They were all the same age. So it's an old subluxation, not an old patient. Because the discs make up 1/3 the length of your spine. If disc degeneration was a result of aging, Do you imagine how short people would be? Now, does Grandma lose some height because she has 2 or 3 bad discs in her spine? Yeah, but that's a natural process of aging. Because how does the disc get its nourishment prior to age 25 by blood supply? Age 25, it gets nourishment by imbibition. Imbibition is a result of motion. Matter of fact, I don't know if you saw the paper that Jeannie was handing out about Solon Langworthy's book, Modernized Chiropractic. Okay? Solon Langworthy, 1906, talked about imbibition. How cool is that? You know? So, imbibition is a result of motion. What do we do with an adjustment? We get motion in there. I have patients been with me 40 plus years and their discs have never gotten any thinner because they stay adjusted. So, just because, pardon me, I'm going through puberty. So just because science hasn't found it yet, doesn't mean it's not true. Because like I said, I've been around long enough to find science catch up with chiropractic. Okay? I'm getting too excited here. And then there's an artist. I'm going to pick on some of my Gonstead friends. I only practice Gonstead. And if it doesn't fix the Gonstead, it can't be fixed. Be open to your colleagues. I'm okay with anybody that practices a system. But Hedo is not a system. Everybody know what Hedo is? Hit every darn one. I think this generation calls it flying 7. We call it hit every, well, this is a family show, that's why I said darn. Okay? Hit every darn one. Okay. Now, you spent a weekend and spent, what, $150 was it for students? I don't know. To learn how to do a specific adjustment. I can teach you how to manipulate in 15 minutes. And you won't be $200,000 in debt. Just rapidly spin the head left, spin the head right. Okay? Put them on the side posture, bring the shoulder way forward, bring the hips way forward, turn them over, lay them on their stomach. Yeah. I'll give you perspective on specificity, people. Insurance didn't start coming into my profession until the late 70s, early 80s. So prior to that, as these docs can tell you, you told the chiropractic story. If they accepted the chiropractic story, they stayed, paid, referred, and got well. If they didn't accept the story, they didn't come back. It's a pretty easy system. Okay? But then the 80s came, and you young people, they called them the Mercedes 80s. You had to be a complete idiot. See, my dad defines people as, there's 2 types. There's idiots and there's complete idiots. You had to be a complete idiot not to make money. And there's a difference between making money and earning money. Had to be a complete idiot not to make money in the 80s. Your report of findings is you need 10,000 visits. Does my insurance cover it? Yes. But now with deductibles being $2,500 deductible, $5,000 $5,000, it's a cash practice. And I have some of my colleagues that were raised, pardon me, ladies, raised on the tit of insurance. I can't make any money anymore. I says, you're not telling the chiropractic story. Because they didn't educate the patient. It's about, subluxation is the sizzle that sells chiropractic. That's all there is to it. But the artist, keep your mind open. Uh-huh. Now, but if you get good at the Gonstead system, you're not going to have to refer to your other colleagues. But it's a system. You're not going to learn it in one weekend. Okay? When I was trained at Palmer, we used a neurocolometer. We had to glide it 500 times with a black face. There's no needle to entertain us. Had 90 degrees to the spine, equal pressure, okay? Up and going to the scapula, shit. Yeah. You know? And once we had 500 glides, then we could get an instrument that had a needle on it to entertain us, okay? We've lost that art form. It's an art form, okay? So I want you to be good at the art, but don't be tunnel vision art. Respect your colleagues, okay? Another saying of Dr. Gonstead is, never question the principle, only the application. I promise you the chiropractic principle is 100%. Okay? B.J. Palmer called it slipping and checking. Okay? That reading's not getting better, that reading's not getting better. Okay? Look at that x-ray again. Okay? Oh, there's the mental marker. Turn it over. You know, evaluate what you're doing all the time. Okay? Yeah. And then there's these poor suckers that don't have any science, philosophy, art. Okay? Okay? And some of these are my ex-students that I taught at Palmer. They come back to the Lyceum or homecoming, whichever area you're in. Doc, I'm burned out. You never caught on fire. You never caught on fire. Because if you understand chiropractic, you won't burn out. You know who burns out? The manipulators. Why do manipulators burn out? They're doing the same repetitious, brain-numbing thing on every single patient. Okay? Line your right side, line your left side, line your stomach. Line your right side, line your left side, line your stomach. Just get in your stomach. God bless them, we need them. You know, I'm in the farm implement capital world, you know, John Deere World Headquarters, Moline, Illinois. And I got patients that work the assembly lines for the tractors and the combine. I got a guy, he puts on the right front tractor tire. I told him, I said, why don't you see if they can switch it to the left periodically? So he's always doing the same repetitious thing all day long. He hates his job. He says, I got 2 years, 3 months, 14 days. He's counting it out to his 30 and out. 30 years and he's retired. Crap, I missed my 30 and out, so I got to go to 60 now. My grandfather got 59 years. He passed away shortly before he got to 60. Okay? So, if you're a chiropractor, in fact, do your first thoughts begin to think, where is the vertebral subluxation? Okay? Where is the interference between innate and function? Then you take spinographs. Then you're ready to deliver adjustment. How long these few single and simple things take? Is an hour enough time, or should it be stretched out to where is it? Enough time, or is that too long? How long does it take to give an adjustment? Is 1 second enough, or should it be stretched out to an hour more? Adjuncts, appliances, suitors, salves, and what have you. Anything more than a simple single approach is camouflage, evasion, deceit, and alibi, trying to make you more than you are, and chiropractic less than it is. I promise you, chiropractic stands on its own 2 feet. Like Dr. Price says, you don't need to heat them up, cool them off, or rinse them out. Okay? I don't have time to do anything but find and correct vertebral subluxations. Okay? That's what chiropractic is, you young people. It's not about any other thing. You don't have to take a butter knife and scrape down their skin and do all that crap, you know. You don't have to lance hemorrhoids, and I just can't believe some of the things that DCs are doing. And there's a difference between DCs and chiropractors. Okay? Now, science. There's some cool science. Yeah, Palmer College of Chiropractic, they have an evidence-based class, and they don't cover any evidence. You know? I don't have time to go through them all, but if you have a chance to search for Sean Hannon's article out of Verbal Subluxation Research, 2004, objective physiological changes associated with health benefits and chiropractic adjustment in what type of patients? Asymptomatic patients. What? Nick, yes. On a scale of 1 to 10, how's your pancreas working?
Pretty good.
Okay. Dr. Meisel, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your pooper working? You know? See, the pain scale doesn't work for bodily functions. You know? And Sean is a private practitioner. This is the stuff that should be coming out of research of our colleges. Okay? If you look in there, there's increased cortical function. And so get adjusted before finals. Okay? Pupillary reaction time. Okay? One of the studies in there, I mean, a ton of studies on asymptomatic patients. There's one with people with duodenal ulcers that were scoped by medical doctors. One group got standard medical treatment. The other group was chiropractic. Okay? And the chiropractic group, ulcers healed 10 days faster than the medical treatment. You know? There's just tons of articles. He did an amazing review of the literature. Okay? And not one of them was talking about pain. So review existing literature documenting objective measure of physiological change and their associated health benefits subsequent to chiropractic adjustments primarily in asymptomatic patients. And it just says everybody should get chiropractic care. But this is my favorite research study. Okay? And the old timers remember the Renaissance seminars. There's a group of us that started funding this research on doing serum thiol studies on patients. And again, 80s was kind of magic. And back then, it cost $1,000 to do testing on one patient. We ran out of money. Okay? And it was led by Ron Perot, initially, who was one of the world's leading immunogeneticists. Okay? But then years go by, the cost got cheaper, and these guys picked it up. Christopher Kent, one of the best, matter of fact, Sherman students, okay? All of you got to give, I've already told you, okay? All of you got to give Christopher a hug. We were classmates, okay? Give Christopher a hug for me. One of the best minds in our profession, okay? So these doctors picked it up to finish the research. This is how cool chiropractic is, okay? Background data. Serum thiols are a measure of human health status. In other words, it's a standard medical test, okay? If you have this serum thiol level, you're healthy. If you're below that, you're not healthy. Everybody with me? Okay. And it's also a surrogate estimate of DNA repair enzyme activity. Listen to this. I'm a country boy, so bad words come up periodically. Okay. This effing so-called vaccine, which really isn't a vaccine, it's an rDNA actor. They're screwing with your DNA. But anyhow, this is an estimate of DNA repair enzyme activity, most notably poly-ADP, which is ribose polymerase, or PRP. While it suggests that chiropractic care improves general health, the effect of chiropractic care on serum thiol has not been investigated. Oh, we got to read materials and methods. God. A case-controlled retrospective analysis. Serum thiol levels in patients with active disease were compared with serum thiol levels in primary wellness subjects with 8 to 52 weeks of chiropractic care, and those been under chiropractic care for 1 to 6 years. Okay? Patients were age matched 50 years or older. There are statistically significant differences in the serum thiol levels of the three groups. Mean serum thiol levels were lowest in patients with active disease. So it's well established if you're not functioning 100%, you have lower serum thiol levels. Everybody with me? Okay. And then if they had pain, they had lower. Asymptomatic subjects under chiropractic care demonstrated higher mean serum thiol levels than patients with active disease. Mean serum thiol levels were highest in the group with long-term chiropractic care, 1 to 6 years. Okay. Conclusion, asymptomatic or primary wellness subjects under chiropractic care demonstrated higher mean serum thiol levels than patients with active disease, and this is what's really cool, and produced some values that were higher than normal wellness values. I was talking to Ron Perot, and Ron Perot says, wait a minute, you can't get that high. If you get here, you're the healthiest of the healthy. But the long-term chiropractic group goes, oh, now I'm going to do the clean. We set the bar up here. Okay. That's how big chiropractic is. So not only are you keeping people healthy, because it's a measure of serum thiol is a measure of DNA repair enzyme activity, not only are you helping that patient, you're helping future generations. That's how big chiropractic is. It's not about back pain. Enough said. Cheers. If anybody needs any information, here's my email. My name is the letter J, Richard Burns, so it's burnsjrichard@gmail.com. burnsjrichard@gmail. So if anything you want, any of my research, something like that, just send me a line. God bless. And Ben, is there anything else? Ben? Nope. Okay. Okay. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Be safe.